Hello, I'm Harry.
And I'm Jack.
We are 2/3 of White Lies, and you're watching Bands Can Talk.
Yesterday was really good. Yeah, it was. Didn't know what to expect. We never played there before, but it was really fun.
It's a very nice venue. Very new, and it was good. It was really good.
Lovely crowd as well. Lovely audience.
Yeah, well, we've always had a good time in Poland, and I think we've always been we've always had a lot of fans here, and we've always had a lot of people come to the shows and who really like the music, and that's great. So we're always happy to come back. Yeah, it's good to be back.
When we were thinking about where we wanted to go for our next album, we had to sort of just see who was interested, see what was happening, Fucking hell. Sorry. I'm going to try and answer that question one more time, see if we can manage a little bit of quiet time. Right. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So we had to see who was interested basically when we had the new record demoed. We demoed the whole thing, so we had maybe 15 or 20 songs to decide from, and we were able to play them to a lot of different people and people who had been interested before. And the label we signed with was run by a person who tried to sign us 10 years ago when we were first unsigned, and he is running a label called Infectious Music, and he just was still very keen on the band, and he really loved the record that we put together, and he was passionate about releasing it. And so to be honest, it wasn't particularly difficult for us, but it's always a bit worrying and always a bit makes you a bit nervous not having a label. I felt like I was hoping that someone would want to pick it up, but in the end we've gone with a really sort of great team and good people.
Every cut you feel defines me. Oh, take it out on me. I'm in love with the feeling. Oh, take it out on me.
Yeah. Well, that's really a question for Charles, but I suppose what you're talking about is the fact that the original lyrics for that song were very different to what they are now, and it was about this sort of mad blogger. I think it was on Instagram or something, but a guy who's just sort of a bit of a hermit and kind of just wrote kind of mad ramblings on Instagram or whatever else, and he would always start these Instagram posts with this phrase 8913, which I guess is a passage from, it might even be a passage from the Bible or something, I don't know, but it was very, very strange, and that was the foundation of that song. Like 8913 fits very neatly into that chorus, take out on me, and he wrote this whole song about this guy, but in the end, I think we decided after listening to it for a little while that the lyrics were just a little bit too strange, too out there, and so we brought it back to more familiar territory, and I think the lyrics are still very good actually, they're just very different. So it's definitely a good moment on the record. It's very sort of White Lies, that song. I think it sounds like a classic White Lies track. Yeah. I think it's good. Well, I think it's good for your songwriting process, because when you take to have that time off, that 6 months, it just means that you kind of you become hungry for it again. You want to start working again, and you want to create something good. And I think that towards the end of that 6 months off, you actually start to feel a little bit bored. And I think that's good for creativity. It's good to feel a little bit bored and just be really excited and hungry to start writing again. And then, also I think the 6 months are important because it gives you a chance to settle back into your life at home, and being on tour and being in a band is all sort of craziness, and to have a bit of a normal routine, and touch base with your friends and your family back home is very important. Just to have a sort of normal life for a little while is good. Well, initially, no. Honestly, I find it quite hard actually. Initially, certainly at the beginning, when you've been away for a little while, I'll find it hard when we finish this tour. When I go back home in December, it's going to be a strange transition and a little bit tricky. But that's just part of the job, and something you have to get used to. Well, you mentioned the fact that we had to sign a new record deal. That had a big impact on the way we wrote and recorded the record, I think, because, as Jack said, we had to demo a whole load of songs, which actually meant finishing them to quite a high standard. It meant getting them to a point where you could hear what the final recordings were going to sound like and hear what the album was going to sound like. And that's not something we've done for a long time, certainly not since our first record, you know. So that was new and that was interesting. But I think that had a good impact on the record, and I think that having those songs in the state and the way that they were before we started recording properly was a good thing for the record, because it just gave us a really good foundation to build upon. And I'd like to think that that's how we'd make records again in the future. I think it's a good way to work.
Let's go all together and die at the same time. Let's go all together and die at the same time.
I feel old. I was thinking about this today, and actually driving through Warsaw on the way back to the venue, me and Charles just went out for some lunch and had a wander around. But I was thinking how much of these cities that we've visited so many times in our career, how much have they changed while we've been working? And I think the answer is probably quite a lot, actually. Like, I think the whole world has changed quite a lot since we've been a band, which is kind of mad to think about. But I suppose that's what happens in over a decade, you know. But I find that quite interesting, like, that we're still here and that we're still playing music to people, and it's 10 years later, like there's almost a whole new generation of people listening to our music now, which is crazy. Yeah, it's really fun.